Welcome to Secrets of the Sussexes. Today we're unpacking a story that gives sensible parents the chills. Years of speeches about boundaries and children's safety, endless statements about harassment and pleas to leave the family alone, and suddenly the promo for Season 2 of With Love, Meghan slips in rare glimpses of Archie and Lilibet. No faces, gentle shots, warm captions. But the essence doesn't change. Childhood has been moved to the shop window to boost interest in a project that, judging by the quiet metrics, is struggling to hold viewers. Older audiences spot the switch immediately. When home life is truly home, you protect it. When home life becomes content, you trade it. That's where a tear appears that is very hard to mend later. For a couple more years they'll talk about privacy, ask photographers not to shoot the kids on walks, demand quiet for safety, but the public will remember those tiny hands on a clapperboard and little feet on a director's chair. Next time, the press will have an iron reply: you showed them yourselves. Why did this hit 50+ viewers so hard? Because our generation grew up with a simple code: there's what's for the public, and there's what's for our own. The family album is for our own. Not because it hides secrets, but because it's memory warmth, not for sale. We don't condemn parents for pride in their children, that's natural. We condemn calculation. Put out just a little, exactly enough to hook attention, then retreat behind the shield of privacy at will. Childhood isn't a dispenser. You can't pour it out and tuck it away according to release schedules and retention dips. The worst detail is the clash with the big past claims. How much effort went into arguing that Britain is dangerous, that not one step without security, how many nerves spent proving that families must live inside the perimeter. And then, in your own social package, over a holiday weekend, comes a series of kids on set shots. Not a paparazzo, not a stringer, the parents spotlighted them. Who will now believe that the stern words about safety are substance, not a convenient argument when trips are awkward and old obligations loom? Will Harry understand this maneuver? Paradoxically, when it comes to the children, he seems to have the most traditional backbone. He can argue about monarchy, rituals, and his own biography, but regardless of beliefs, one red line remains: children are not currency. After this, how do you demand that the media stop peeking if you've hung a red lantern above the nursery door yourself? How do you persuade courts and agencies the risk is high if yesterday's feed hints at the club, the class, the schedule, and the adult crew the little ones meet on set? Trust is fickle, built over years, scattered by one badly placed accent. There's another dimension older viewers feel keenly: the cost to the children themselves. Teenagers detect double standards instantly. They don't forgive sometimes it's okay when sometimes aligns with the parent's advantage. They don't read our breakdowns or study retention charts and CPMs, but someday they'll open a phone and see how the boundaries were drawn in marker and wiped with a tissue, depending on a premiere. The hardest conversation in a parent's life isn't with a journalist or even a judge. It's with a grown son or daughter who asks, "Why did you let everyone into our childhood?" Maybe it was sincere, a kind soul will ask. Maybe a mother just wanted to share the joy of kids watching her work. Possible. But sincerity is always recognized by its form. If it's truly about family, it looks like a note in a handwritten recipe book, a photo of grandma's faded clippings, an imperfect apron with a stain that won't come out, yet it's still the favorite. It isn't a child on a director's stool, a little hand on a clapper, or a silhouette lit by studio lamps. Where staging begins, sincerity ends. There's something else our audience sees without prompting: the long-term cost of these tactics. Today a little bit of the kids lifts the feed, tomorrow that little bit won't be enough, the day after, the algorithm will ask for more. That's how dosage dependency forms. First a silhouette, then a voice, then just a tiny glimpse of a face for a special occasion, and a year later it's hard to explain to yourself why this was the last time. Dozens of celebrity families have slipped into this bog, almost none escaped without scars. And so it goes: the louder they declared privacy, the faster they pressed the gas when the numbers sagged. But their faces aren't shown. What's the harm? The harm is that privacy isn't a screen, it's an atmosphere. You can't simulate it. It either exists, or it doesn't. When parents play hot and cold with the audience, the children live in a draft. Today the curtain, tomorrow the window cracked, the next day the door flung wide because we need a little bump. A rule as simple as a stool: if you don't want shoes in your living room, don't open the door for applause. Another thread: the way older generations react to this kind of hominess. People whose youth meant long queues for flats, family evenings, and photo albums in the sideboard do not parade the sacred. Not because they're outdated, but because they know the price of quiet happiness. For them, family is a child jogging through the kitchen with an apple and a mother scolding in a whisper so as not to break the evening. You can't resize that to fit a timeline, an edit, or mood music. Try to package it, and older viewers feel that heavy emotion, embarrassment. Not for the adults on screen, for the kids. There's also the professional angle no one likes to mention. Every public brand rests on the trust of its core audience. When the core stops believing, the format hopping begins: today cooking, tomorrow a talk podcast, the next day home hacks. The problem isn't self-reinvention. The problem is when, instead of substance, you start playing family cards because they work here and now. Older audiences hate those trump cards. They read worse than headlines and last longer in memory. When things got tough, you pulled out the kids. And Harry, does he really oppose this? People close to them insist this is the one area where he's firm. And, perhaps for the first time in a while, he has the chance to step out of the smoke with a clear, simple stance: no excuses, no courtesies. Say the sentence every parent understands: our children are not part of the show. Don't clip the wings of projects, don't argue with producers, just set one rule that isn't rewritten for special occasions. And, more important, keep it yourselves, don't outsource it to lawyers and press officers. Can this be reversed? Yes, if it stops now. Remove from the promo anything that lays a trail to the kids. Move the warmth into human stories without faces and silhouettes, into the little things that make a kitchen real and a narrative trustworthy. Older audiences love truth, even when it's modest. They do not love spectacle, even when it's dazzling. If Meghan truly wants hominess, she doesn't need rare glimpses. She needs ordinary words about family, spoken without a teleprompter and a boundary drawn not by press release, but by conscience. Above all, stop confusing attention with respect. Attention can be bought, sparked, begged. Respect is earned through years of quiet around children. Quiet is not the absence of life. It is the refusal to trade that life. Quiet is when your child decides what to show the world when they're grown. Not because the team said so, but because they chose it. Here at Secrets of the Sussexes, we're not asking you to love or to loathe. We're asking you to remember something simple: other people's children are not a series. If parents forget that in the chase for numbers, the viewer must remind them, the very viewer who makes any project alive. Tell us what you think. If you agree, hit like. If not, argue in the comments. One request: let's protect childhood as the most precious thing. You can't re-edit it. You can only preserve it.